Hey everybody, I hope you're doing great out there. Paul Peterson here, Music on the Run. Our next guest is Jason Falkner, coming right up. Here we go, a little syncage. Hey everybody, St. Paul here. Welcome to episode 39 of Music on the Run. Man, summer's here, and guess what? It's busy. We're starting to gear up to do some gigs. Man, I'm so excited to play with other humans in the same physical space. Of course, we're doing Funk Fridays. We've done 64 of them now. Man, every week since the pandemic, a little 1 minute jam. Thanks for tuning into those. We've had over 95 world-class musicians doing that. So that's all a part of what we do here at Music on the Run. But now, I don't even know if I know how to play with other musicians in the same room. Anyway, let's get to my next guest. He's an incredible songwriter, producer, singer, and multi-instrumentalist, and a former member of the bands Jellyfish, at 3 O'Clock, and The Grays. He's also a studio and touring musician who's worked with people like Paul McCartney, Beck, Amy Mann, St. Vincent, to name a few. He's released a lot of solo records that are unbelievable. I've been going to school on him incredibly hard the last few days here. And a fun fact is that we were both on Paisley Park Records at different times. He's a great writer, such an interesting take sonically, lyrically, melodically, and incredibly musical. Please welcome Jason Falkner. Thank you. I think I said incredibly 75 times, and I'm going to go back and count.
That's okay. At least you can say genius a bunch of times.
Would you like that? Let me take two, everybody.
Genius.
Take two.
These eggs are genius.
What did you say?
Thanks for having me.
Well, I should, and I shall. For the next hour, I shall be flattering you. Where am I finding you, man? Are you in L.A. or?
Yeah, I'm on my porch in Echo Park, Los Angeles.
I have a good friend who used to live there by the name of Jeff Hull, great singer-songwriter, drummer. And I used to go to Echo Park all the time back in the 90s. Man, that's a great little neighborhood.
When Echo Park was kind of a no man's land.
I suppose.
I remember that. Oh, yeah. Echo Park is like really, the whole east side of Los Angeles has kind of been blown out in the last decade or so. But it's still, this place I'm in the 90s would have been about $400 a month rent, and now it's put another zero and then some.
Oh man,
yeah. So
that's part of the. You're a multi-instrumentalist, man. It'd be easier for me to narrow it down to what don't you play?
I don't play any sort of violin, viola, cello, and I don't play really any brass and I played clarinet in junior high school, but I was so embarrassed to play it. It's probably best because I wanted a saxophone, but my parents couldn't. They couldn't afford the rental of the saxophone, but right. Because the clarinet was so much cheaper, because nobody wanted to play it. So I got the clarinet, and again, it's probably best because maybe there'd be a lot of like Clarence Clemens kind of penalties happening in my music had I saxophone. To me, a saxophone in rock is a really slippery slope.
It sure is. Is there such a thing? Except for Clarence, I think he can get by with that.
He's good, and I like the kind of sleazy New York saxophone in like David Johansen records and some Lou Reed saxophone stuff. I like that. It's kind of like
what about the David Sanborn solo in The Young Americans, though? What do you think?
It's good. It's just so damn slick. And the only reason it doesn't sound so slick is because he's in the company of Bowie, which he toughened everything up. But man, yeah, I'm not huge into that.
Not huge into that. See, saxophone and rock and roll. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm also a multi-instrumentalist, and I get asked the question. You play a lot of things. Do you have a favorite instrument? So I want to ask you that. You lean towards one instrument? Are you most comfortable on one instrument?
Definitely lean towards the guitar. Even though I started with classical piano I started playing piano first one I was very young, like when I was playing it from underneath like this, walking around.
Did I hear you were playing? What song were you playing at eye level, man? Some boogie woogie stuff or something. Elton John.
Crocodile Rock.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my mom tells the story. Of course, I can't remember, but yeah, I guess I play along to Crocodile Rock. So I got into classical piano when I was really young, but for the longest, basically since I got my first electric guitar, which was a 73 Mustang, which I still have.
Oh, that's good.
The guitar is just so cool to me. It's just such an interesting thing. It's this conduit to basically like the dark side, but in a wonderful way. It's just the spirit of like just the sound of a distorted guitar is just so damn exciting to me, and it still is. It was certainly intoxicating when I was a kid,
right?
But yeah, so I have about 30 guitars now, and all kind of unusual suspects. I don't have like Les Pauls or Strats. I never wanted those guitars. I always wanted something a little bit weirder. Probably the most normal guitar I have is my 62 Jazzmaster.
Okay.
And that, Jazzmasters were basically a failure for Fender when they first came out. When Jazzmasters first came out, they were more expensive than Strat. And they just they weren't a successful model. Literally no jazz guys played a jazz.
Right.
And, but anyway, yeah, so I still kind of gravitate towards guitar, but oddly enough, on this new record that I've been working on during this whole pandemic, there's a lot more kind of piano-based, even if there's no piano in it, like the composition, there's a lot more piano-based stuff.
Do you find yourself writing differently on the different instruments? Do you write differently on the guitar than you do on piano?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I'm very ambidextrous on the piano. I mean, obviously, should be. You're using two hands, generally speaking, but there's a lot more. I almost have like a lot more confidence on the piano than I do on guitar, and there's a lot more possibilities with harmonic structure and everything on using two hands.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I definitely kind of write differently on the two things. I mean, my guitar stuff is, oddly enough, on this record, there's a couple of things that are like extremely rocking, like probably the most rocking stuff I've ever done, cool. Where it's a little bit more, at least maybe upon first listen, it's a little bit more simple and direct than some of my stuff in the past. But then once you dig in, and if, God willing, if you listen to it more than one time,
right.
It's going to reveal that it's actually not that simple. It's just kind of the takeaway of it is that it's just kind of this straightforward, simplistic thing. And then the piano stuff on the new record is probably even more adventurous than. So it's kind of like the two extremes are represented on this new record, where the harmonic and melodic stuff is even more adventurous than it has been, and the rocking stuff is more rocking than it was.
Why not go all the way, man? Of course, you might as well. At this point in our careers, it's like, come on. Let's do it.
I didn't know 2022 was actually going to happen. So I just thought I'm going to go out with like no parameters, none of my old, hey, I don't do that. Like that's not what I do. And I just threw all that stuff out the window, and now I'm just doing whatever the hell I want to. I mean, I always did, but I really am now.
So we were talking a little bit before we went on the air here about, you started to say, hey, last year was interesting, but now things are starting to happen. You said that you've been working your butt off for the last 3 months or something, right? Tell me what you're doing.
Well, it's mainly been just virtual recording stuff for other people or with other people. But the main thing has just been my stuff.
Good.
I just get, I basically have a record done. I've had a record pretty much done for a few months now, but since I don't have a label or anybody or manager saying, hey, where's that record? Come on, man. Yeah. You're late. Right. It's not that I keep tinkering on those other songs. I just keep writing new ones. And I just kind of feel like I'm going to over record a bunch of new material. And then at some point in the next month or so, I'm going to sit back and take stock of what I've done and put that into it, make a record out of that stuff. But I've done some interesting things. I recorded some on Sinead O'Connor's new record.
What?
Yeah, and that was. I mean, obviously, they're just remotely.
Yeah,
they send me the tracks from.
I need to talk to her. By the way, I've got to interrupt you for 2 seconds. I don't know because we don't know each other. Yeah. I sang "Nothing Compares to You" when Prince produced that on me, and of course, Sinead is the one who made it famous, and we've never talked about that. I mean, I don't know whether she's a person who would ever want to do that, but I am dying to meet that woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, you were doing that.
I haven't met her.
You haven't met her either. Okay.
No. But that's crazy. Wait, so what was your, forgive my ignorance, but I don't know your whole thing with Prince.
So, okay. So in the opener, I just said that you and I were signed to Paisley at different times. I was signed to him. I was in a group called More Stay in the Time.
Oh my God.
Rain.
Of course I know that. I'm so sorry. I should have known that about you.
Not at all, man. It's totally fine. So I played keyboards in that band, and then he moved me to front this band that he had called The Family.
Okay.
And the Family was an offshoot, basically, and it was a one-chord funk record with bebop harmonies superimposed over the top by Claire Fisher.
Wow.
I'll send you it after. We'll talk offline. I think you'll dig that. You
Please
love
do.
the harmonics on that. You really like that. So that's my background, and then I ended up leaving the fold and signing a solo deal at MCA, and that was fun. You and I have very similar things going on with our labels. And we'll either talk about that or we won't. But so that's my background with Prince, though.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. I'm sorry I didn't know that. Yeah, that's amazing. I love Morris Day. I love that stuff.
We had so much fun doing that stuff. It's just, I still play that stuff today because it's cool. It's fun. It's funky. And that's my whole family's like by the way, this backdrop is my mom's old place. And she bought this in the 50s with my dad. There have been more rehearsals down here, Jason. And,
wow.
You know, who's been here? Oscar Peterson, Steve Miller Band, Frampton. Everybody's been in this basement just to hang and rehearse and barbecue and have a good time, man.
That's amazing. Jesus.
Oh, it's fun. And now we're going to get you. When you come to Minneapolis, we got to have you come over and be part of the family.
I'll be there.
Beautiful.
I just watched a great doc about the whole Minneapolis kind of early punk and new wave scene of the late 70s that centered around that bar in Minneapolis.
Uptown, would that have been the Uptown Bar? It might have been.
Or is it the Continental, or no? Is that?
I don't think so.
I can't remember, but it's the birth of like Twin Tone.
Oh, yeah.
And all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Kuskadoo, Replacements, all those guys.
Yeah. Suburbs, Suicide Commandos, all that stuff.
Right.
Cool.
Right.
Oh, and I love this guy, Curtis A.
Curtis A. still around. I own some of his artwork, by the way. He's
really? I love that dude.
Oh, he's great. He does a Lennon tribute every year at First Avenue.
Wow.
Yeah, he's something else, man. He's a character for sure.
I bet. That's cool.
So you grew up in kind of an artsy family. You were, tell me a little bit about your mom and dad's and.
Yeah, my dad is still a painter. He's a kind of an abstract painter, and I was born in San Francisco, and then we went back to Texas to kind of spend some time with his parents, right after I was born, and that was a little tiny town. I don't even really know where it is. Shame on me, but it was called Big Spring, Texas. It's a little tiny, basically kind of like a truck stop town, and then he got a job at Pepperdine University here in Malibu. And when I was 4, and we moved out here, so I've been out here since I was 4. And so my dad, I mean, the records that he had, I don't even know if he actually bought them himself or if he just inherited them from a friend or something. But the records that I remember the most as a kid, like when I was first listening to music that I was putting on, I had a little Fisher-Price little turntable thing.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And it was Love Da Capo, that the Love record. It was Procol Harum, Santana. And then the most profound impact on me was made by the Piper at the Gates of Dawn Pink Floyd record, the Syd Barrett stuff. So I was listening to that stuff when I was like 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old.
Right.
that would change the DNA of a 35-year-old when they first hear it. But when you're 4 or 5, I mean, that the impression that made on me was profound. So I was kind of always around music, but at right around, I mean, since I was 7, 8, 9, that then the only music I was around was my own and what I was interested in, and kind of the new wave thing was just kind of starting when I was around 10.
Yeah,
and I got really into that. I got really, really into I really embraced the changing of the guard for the most part. I mean, I still love Led Zeppelin and all that stuff, like big time, but there was something, this new thing happening, and everybody looked really different, and I just was totally mesmerized by it. So I got really into some punk stuff, but also like really, really into like Elvis Costello and Joe Jackson, which was obviously not. It's not that at all, but and the Clash and the Damned and all that stuff. But some records that my dad also had when I was really young, and this made a really big impact on me. He used to make these movies of his. He would basically shoot like kind of home movies of the kids and my mom, and then he would fastidiously paint parts of the. I'm talking about Super 8 with no sound. The Super 8 is really thin,
right?
And he would paint. So there'd be just like me and my sister running around in the backyard, and then all of a sudden it's like this baked thing starts creeping in, and then it just takes over, and then it's this really weird abstract like blob, and then it goes back into like my mom, in the kitchen or something or whatever, they're dancing, and the music that he would always play, because like I said, that was Super 8 without sound. The music that he played most often with that was this record called A Rainbow in Curved Air by this guy Terry Riley. He was an early electronic, modern composer, more kind of Steve Reich. He's in that school. Steve Reich, Philip Glass, kind of repetitive, but really, really thought provoking.
Right.
And man, I still love that record, A Rainbow in Curved Air, which has to be where the Stuart Copeland pre-Police band Curved Air got their name.
I gotta go check that out.
Yeah, it's a challenging listen, like most of that stuff. I mean, these people were trying to redefine what music was.
Yeah,
and in a lot of ways, it's not. It's something else. It's obviously still music. It's coming out of speakers and it's notes, but it's doing something other than what we all believe music does.
So that's the soundtrack, not only to the movie but to your childhood too.
Pretty much, yeah. And that had a really profound impact on me as well, because I have this thing that I feel like I'm always like. Of course, I'm interested in writing a song, and I'm interested in conveying an idea and a message, however abstract. But there's always something in my, even the most direct, quote unquote, pop songs that is kind of tugging at that and kind of almost confusing the very message or the very, it's confusing the end result. Where I think some people are like, I don't really know what's going on with that, because it's like, yeah, it's like it's catchy, but it's not really doing what I want it to do. And I delight in that reaction.
Odd bars, 3.5 bars sometimes, and some of the ways you switch keys and then come back around is just brilliant. And genius.
Thanks,
and genius.
Thank you.
See,
thanks.
I told you I'd get around to that word.
All right, yes, we got one.
We got one. There'll be many more. I've written them into my script. So how do you Mrs. Holcomb is sitting there trying to teach you,
wow,
classical piano, and she's like, "What's with the rock guitar, huh, Jace?" Did she? That's
exactly how she talked.
I bet it was.
That's exactly how she talked.
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
Hey, Hey, what the hell's going
What's
on here,
with the
Bob?
rock guitar with your hand, the smeary guitar? We're doing classical Juilliard stuff here. What?
That's exactly right. Well, yeah, I was.
You were a prodigy. Come on, let's talk about that a little bit. You were a prodigy on your way, if you so chose, to go to Juilliard. You had a ticket.
Pretty much. Right? I pretty much did, and I remember having. Well, I couldn't even talk to my music teacher about the music that I was really interested in because she just it just didn't exist for her.
Yeah.
And she was a phenomenal teacher. She was very dedicated, very passionate about the giants in the classical world. But yeah, I remember getting into like Yes and stuff like that in early Genesis. And I remember one time I was like, "Can I just play you something?" And she's like, "Oh my," she's like, "Oh, if you must." And I put on, I don't know what I put on, something off like Yes Drama, which is the one with Trevor Horn singing, which actually I love that record.
Right.
And she just stopped the tape. She's like, this is not music. And it was so rigid, the whole world that I was in. And that's not to say that that's how everybody in the classical domain behaves, but in my experience, it was so rigid and so anti. She actually hated guitars. She's like, guitar is such an imperfect instrument. You have to tune it.
Right. Well, there is that.
How can the frets be all? How can that all be? It's not intonated up top.
That's why we love it, though. That's what's cool about it.
And what's funny is the debris that carried on with me from this kind of attitude stayed with me for quite a while, because I remember, when obviously I always loved the Beatles, but the Stones, I was kind of like, man, they can't tune their guitars. I'm like, tune your guitar. And then now and for the last 35 years, the most interesting and the most beautiful thing about the Stones is that they're out of tune.
Because they didn't give a what.
Well, exactly. And somebody wasn't chasing around with a strobe tuner like everybody does now. It's like, is that thing totally? I can't tell you how many things I record, and I'm like,
sharp.
They're like, can you tune that guitar? I'm like, believe me, I know it's out of tune slightly, but it's out of tune. It's out of tune for a reason, because it's going to chorus naturally with the last thing I did that was perfectly in tune. And then I bent the strings a little bit and I played the instrument, and now it's slightly out of tune, but it's wonderful. Just trust me. And everybody was like, just tune that thing. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Right.
I'm trying to help you.
Since you graduated from high school, you went off to Alaska. What are you doing in a cannery, for crying out loud? Were you just getting away with your boys? Is that what that was all about?
Well, we were all really into the romanticism of the Steinbecks and the Hemingways and that's literally why we went. We thought it would be this crazy experience, and it actually ended up exceeding all expectation as far as craziness. We drove up there. We drove from LA, we took our time. We stopped every night. We left late in the day then the following day. We went to bars all the way up the coast.
Oh boy. Of course.
We got detained at the border for Canadian border that you have to go through to get back up to Alaska, because one of the guys that we had brought, it was my two best friends, myself, and then one of my best friends was like, we need a fourth person. And I'm like, well, we're like the Three Musketeers. There is no fourth. And he's like, well, I know this guy that I'm working at the restaurant. So I'll invite him. So I remember meeting this guy, and I was like, this guy is an asshole. Like, I didn't like him at all. Right. Check this out. We had just bought a bunch of weed and I don't smoke pot anymore, but I haven't smoked pot for a long time, but I did a little bit as a teenager. And pot to me is like acid, so it was never a good idea. But we stopped to get to, somehow somebody found a way to buy that. And then the guy, and then we get really, really stoned. I remember we were listening to XTC Skylarking, and we're just about to hit the border late at night, and we're all out of our mind. And the guy that was not part of the Three Musketeers, the outcast, he's like, "Hey guys, I got to tell you something." And we're like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I have a gun." Brought a gun, and we're like, and again, everybody's baked out of their minds, so it's just unthinkable. I'm just like,
traumatic, of course.
What are you talking about? And then he goes, "We should probably hide these. We should hide the gun, and we should hide the bullet." He had like Remington hollow point bullet.
Who is this guy?
He's an idiot. So we put the bullets in my friend's over the shoulder bag. When we pulled over, and we hide the gun under the spare tire that's under the back. We're in one of those 70s Toyota Land Cruisers, that are always like white and orange.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have to lift the back area, the spare tires under the basically the back of this thing. Hid the gun in there, get to the immigration. The guy's like, he's like, "Shut the truck," like on the PA thing, because he's looking at us and we're out of our mind.
Yep.
Anyway, so why did I tell that super long story about that?
Going up the epic Hemingway moment.
Sorry. Yeah, we did that. I stayed there for like 3 months. It was like beyond Thunderdome. It was gnarly.
Whoa.
And I finally got a flight out of there on a single engine Cessna that had the Alaska Airlines logo on it, but I think it was spray painted. Like it was not legit.
Chicken Airlines, right?
What's that?
Chicken Airlines.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was a crazy thing. And then then when I was there, or I should say when I got back, I kind of took inventory of what was going on in my life, and I was like, I got to get my shit together.
Right.
And I put an ad out in this free classified ads paper here called The Recycler.
And I remember that.
Was that?
I remember that.
You remember The Recycler? Yeah,
oh, sure.
Fantastic. And I just, that's how I got in the 3 o'clock. And that was the kind of the first big thing I was in.
So were they signed to Paisley before you were in the band, or?
Yeah. So they had started out on like, the cool label like Frontier, which was like a kind of a punk label here. And then they went to IRS. Okay. And then, so by the time I got in the band, they had just signed with Paisley Park. And I think the story goes that, Prince had his friendship and had worked with Susanna Hoffs.
Right.
And I guess he had asked her, like, what else is going on in LA? And Susanna Hoffs, being a good friend to the 3 o'clock, said, well, the coolest thing in LA is the 3 o'clock. So that's literally how they got signed.
Wow. Did you record the record at Paisley, or did you record the record in LA? No, we recorded here in LA with, definitely chose the wrong producer. It's definitely not the right producer for that band. I mean, it's a really cool kind of a very sweet, kind of cool, mildly psychedelic pop band in that whole scene here in LA in the early 80s that was known as the Paisley Underground. Yeah. They were kind of, some of the main figureheads of that scene. And then the record that we made that came out on Paisley Park was just abysmal. It was, the producer didn't let the drummer play the drums. It's all like just programmed. DX7 is programmed, all that stuff. Back in those days, that's what it was all about, right? That's what it was about for a lot of people, but it was never Shouldn't
about
have been for that band. Right.
That
shouldn't have been for your band.
No. It would have been like programming Sonic Youth or something. Give me a break. It would have been insane. I mean, not that 3 o'clock sounded anything like Sonic Youth, but it was a live band. You know. But the record ended up sounding like the Escape Club or something. So, do you remember that?
Yeah.
We're the only 2 people, by the way, who know what that is. I think.
How long were you in that band? Was that the end, beginning of the end?
Yeah, we did like maybe about a 6-month tour. And then it was just over. Yeah, they were they were tired, and I was like, I just wanted to. That band was like on its last legs when I so
okay.
it was time for me to go. I think I actually quit, and then they just yeah.
Did you transition right into Jellyfish after that, or was there a period of time there where you were kind of taking some time off? Or
well, oddly enough, so through the same recycler paper, I put an ad in the an ad in the recycler looking for like-minded individuals, and I remember I put I put like multi-instrumentalist songwriter, looking for people into Bowie, XTC, and the Blue Nile. You know the Blue Nile?
Yeah, I don't know them that well, but
yeah. So there's only I think 3 records from the Blue Nile, and they're those 3 things couldn't be more disparate. The Bowie thing was, and the funny thing to think of is that I only got 1 call on that ad, because sort of Bowie hadn't yet kind of gone away. This was like during the Glass Spider era,
records, right?
Like 80. This is like 80. I'd say this was like 87, 88.
Okay, yeah.
And so that's how I met. I met Roger. Roger Manning was the only guy that called me. He was the player. Jellyfish. He's the only person who called in it, and literally the first thing he said was, "I can't believe somebody in LA knows who Blue Nile are." And I was like, "Yeah, of course I know who they are. I love them." They're Scottish, like really emotional, like sensitive, slightly techno, not techno, but slightly electronic, but beautiful stuff. Anyway, yeah. So so I'm sorry, I got a little bit of the story reversed. So that's how I met Roger, and then after I met Roger, I went to Alaska. And when I came back from Alaska, I was putting an ad in the paper, and I was checking to see my ad that I put in.
Mm-hmm.
I put in another ad, and that's when I looked at the next section and saw that 3 O'Clock were looking for guitar player. So when I joined that band, it was about a year after I had met Roger, and then Roger calls me up and he's like, "Man, I'm moving back up to San Francisco." He moved back up to San Francisco, and he was like, "I've just kind of joined forces with an old childhood friend of mine, and we're looking for a guitar player, and you're the guy." And I was like, "Well, I'm in 3 O'Clock, man."
Yeah.
And he's like, "What?" And we just cracked up. But I didn't even know Roger. We'd only met one time. But and then fast forward about a year later, after we had made the 3 O'Clock record, we're playing in San Jose near San Francisco, and this guy walks up to me at our sound check, and he's like, "Hey, I think you know our keyboard player." And I'm like, "Who's your keyboard player?" And he goes, "Roger Manning." I'm like, "What?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the Roger comes up to me. He's like, "This is the band." So this guy, the guy that's going to be singing, playing drums, is the guy that when I called you last year, my dream is to have a band with him, myself, and you, a trio. And so I watched that band, and that was the pre-Jellyfish band, and I saw Andy singing and playing drums, and I didn't care about the gimmick of him standing and playing drums, but I did like his voice, and I liked I didn't like the band, but I liked whenever he sang.
Right.
So that's how that happened, and then like I said, we did about a 6-month tour with 3 O'Clock, and then I think I called him and said, "Hey, let me hear some demos." They sent me these demos, and they kind of blew my head away.
Really?
So yeah, the demos blew me away. So I then started figuring out how to move up to San Francisco to start that band with those guys, which I've regretted ever since.
Oh, you do one record with these guys, but here you are, just a badass songwriter. And how was it that you weren't able to contribute to that record?
They wouldn't let me. They were not interested.
That was not part of the jam, for them anyway.
Well, yeah, it's really sad actually, because I think the combination of all 3 of us. Well, first of all, I would have stayed in the band a lot longer had I been able to have that output. and the songs would have been better. But no, they just had a real, I guess, strict kind of idea for what they wanted it to be like, and they didn't want anybody, anybody else involved. And it's, I understand that. I guess the thing that I kind of held on to as far as a resentment for a long time was that I was kind of like deceived a bit, to be honest, when they first were asking me to be the band, because they're like, hey, we want you to write, we want this to be like a democracy. We want this to be like 3 equal people in this band. And that sounded pretty damn good to me. So
right.
I agreed and uprooted my life and moved up there. And then every single song I brought in, they're like, no, it's really good, but it's just not right for this band. And then, I heard that so many times. That is the worst
line ever.
What's that?
I said, I hate that line.
It's brutal.
It is brutal. It's like, wait a minute. And then they just start going, do I suck? What's this? What's up with that?
Yeah, it's a total
brush
off.
Right for this band. I thought you wanted me in this band. Okay, I understand. I got you.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell we hit a nerve here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So
yeah,
that had to be stifling for you.
Oh, it was basically the first brick in the wall. Then first of many. I built a big wall by the end of my tenure in that band. So the second we did like a year touring. It was crazy.
Wow.
The Black Crowes asked me to be in their band.
What?
And I said, no, if I do that, I think I probably would only live maybe 2 or 3 more years. So
well, you might be right there. You might be right.
I very politely and flatteringly said, thanks, no thanks. And then, then they were asking, the Geologist guys were like, come back up and do your guitar magic. And I was like, can I write some songs? And they're like, well, you know how we are. And I was like, well, this is how I am. Like, I'm out of here.
Well,
I'm out of here.
It seems to me like you've always had a pretty good handle on who you are musically. Is that true?
I think so. Yeah. I don't think I've actually even changed that much this whole time. I think I kind of like that thing I was kind of touching on earlier. Wanting to make a musical and lyrical statement. Wanting to write aspiring to write great songs or songs that at least entertain me.
Yeah.
But also like have this kind of dynamic that's like tugging at it or kind of obscuring it, or, it's probably, as I'm saying this, I'm realizing this is probably the reason why I don't have any commercial success, because it's like a huge shooting myself in the foot by doing this thing that I'm talking about. And I don't even do it intentionally anymore. It might have started out intentional because I just am so bored with like a song that just has one dimension, or 2 dimensions, it's so boring to me. I'd rather listen to a chainsaw than like a singer-songwriter playing some trite thing about his feelings. So I have this kind of like, it's almost like a rebellion to the actual, it's a very confusing place to be. But it's also
who you are. But do you know how many artists out there who are wildly successful who have no idea who they are musically?
Yeah.
It's 90% of them.
It's terrifying. It actually really bothers me. I'm like, shouldn't we call them something other than an artist if they don't know who they are? Like, you know what I mean?
Sometimes it takes people their entire careers to finally find their voice, man. I think that in my opinion, I don't think you've been shooting yourself in the foot. I think you've been sticking to your guns, and
Definitely.
You're the definition of a true artist. So kudos to you, because who does that other than a true artist? I think that's commendable, man. I think that's awesome.
Well, I appreciate
that. And it shows up in the productions that you do, the arrangements that you do, the string arrangements that you do. Nobody can. There's no one like what you do. Even the different instrumentation that you bring to the party, the arrangements that you bring to the party. are uniquely Jason Falkner. I mean, there's no question about that. So I think that's something to be proud of, man.
Well, I appreciate that, and I actually am
genius. I said it. That's 2.
Well, that's 2. Yes, we can do more.
There's more.
No, I'm actually not, like unhappy with my sort of place in life, and that I feel like it is that general like I don't have anything that keeps me up at night. I mean, I have some people in my life that keep me up at night, and I don't mean that in a but way. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I should have said I mean that in every way, the good way and the bad way.
Right.
But yeah, it is. I can't. I mean, so many people have said like to me something along the lines of, like you were all like people that I've known for a long time. They're like, you're exactly the same. You're like still the same person. You're like, and they don't mean that as negative, like you have Peter Pan syndrome, or you're like, what, like why don't you grow up and have a kid or something? What's wrong with you? Some people say that, but but yeah, it's just my taste hasn't changed. Like what really gets me off musically has not really changed, and I kind of still listen to a lot of the same stuff I listened to. I've been listening to for decades, and I have a really, really vast and highly, I'll use the annoying word, curated LP and 7-inch library at this point. I mean, my collection's out of control, and it's all killer, no filler. And so yeah, I just sit around listening to records, and then when I'm writing a song, I'm just trying to write a song that I haven't, and especially the way that I record it and the way I arrange it, I want to make something for just to listen to, almost as a fan. So it's like, I want to make something that I haven't heard. And again, my music is not experimental. It's not The Residents at all. It's very much still within a kind of a classic song structure, but within that, I like to do things that are a little bit unexpected, So that's pretty much my whole style right there, and that's be $35 for the DVD for me to explain that.
And you can get it after this podcast is done by going to 1-800.
Right. The Ronco Falkner video.
That's right. The new and nautical. What keeps you doing this stuff, man? What keeps you motivated to get up every morning and fight the good fight and be in a good place about it? Because sometimes this business can be complete bullshit.
Yeah, I can lay you out. It did lay me out for quite a while. I feel like I kind of I just cut my hair recently, and I feel like it looks like I'm in the Jam or something. But like this little thing,
I wish I had more hair to cut.
What's that?
I said I wish I had more hair to cut.
Oh, well, yeah, you're fine. You're fine.
Oh.
But what keeps me doing it is I'm still so excited to, when I used to have a tape machine, just throw on a virgin reel of tape. Now that I record digitally, I still have an old console from the 70s. I have a room in my house that has everything in it. And I just am so excited to create something. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier, which is like, I just want to listen to a song that I can't find anywhere else. I want to make the song that that I want to hear. And nobody else is going to write it. So I have to write it. And, I also have still like a real, adolescent, energy and joy to, the performing of each instrument. See, that's a whole nother aspect to my whole thing, whatever you want to call it, that maybe isn't that common, is that I do actually play every instrument. It's not programmed. It's not. Right. It's not like, oh, I clunk on the drums like a toddler and then I fix them in Pro Tools, Beat Detective. I'm actually performing the drums all the way through. I don't cut the chorus and paste it on the other choruses. Right. No, the damn song is supposed to move and it's supposed to build and all this stuff and things are supposed to happen.
What a concept, man.
I know, right?
What?
Like
what? This is
some
new.
people are scratching their head. What is he talking about?
I don't know.
But imagine if Revolver was auto-tuned and Beat Detective. Oh. My God, what a tragedy. So anyway, so I'm trying to, I guess, explain that another component of the whole joy and the what I get out of all this is playing my instruments that I have. That I've amassed this collection that's not unlike my LP collection. It's a very specific. I definitely have a style. If anybody who sees my guitar collection, first of all, they're like about 75% of them. They're like, what? I've never seen those. I don't know. What is that guitar? And I'm not collecting weird, stupid looking lute guitars or anything. I'm like, this is like just cool, mainly 60s and 70s, kind of oddball things, but they give me something every time I pick them up. And at this point, I've sold everything that I don't care immensely for. So all of the stuff that I have in there
has personality,
and it actually kind of, there's a relationship that maybe because it's not the easiest guitar to play, it makes you do something different. Like it's a little bit of there's a dialogue.
Right.
And it's not just like, listen to this like perfect 58 Les Paul and man, it's like butter. And like, I have a few guitars that are like butter, but I have a lot of guitars that are more like
angry
sandpaper.
Yeah. Yeah. You son of a gun. Come on, we can do it. There's accent.
Give up. I surrender.
Yeah.
But I love that. And then, I'm really into trying to get things to sound tough. And I have this whole thing about everything should sound tough. Yeah. And what I mean by that is just a sonic thing. It's not the tone of the instrument. It's the tone of the mix. And I don't even think that I necessarily was nailing what I'm talking about until this record.
Wow.
Because I didn't, each time I record a new thing, I learn so much because I never studied it. I don't have any, I can't, as soon as I need to read a manual for anything that I own, I can no longer read, speak, or understand English. Like I cannot.
Does not compute. Does not compute.
Malfunction. Yeah. So everything I learn is trial and error, and it's learned organically and frustratingly. And so for that reason, I think, when you have to learn something like that way, you actually retain what you learn because it's not
discovery.
It's not just accessible here in a manual or on a YouTube instructional video or whatever. I can't even look up anything on a YouTube instructional video because as soon as the guy starts talking, I'm like, I can't listen to you.
Because it's usually an ad first anyway.
What's that?
It's usually an ad first anyway.
It's an ad and then it's just some techno jerk off like, hey, it's so late. Now we're going to edit drums, bros. I'm just like, no, we're not.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So
bye-bye.
That's kind of like, so I just really get into making one of my favorite things too is also I'll be working on something and I can't get it to feel right. And I'll start convincing myself that I might have to like redo the drums or something, which is, pretty laborious to do that. Cause you've performed some of the subsequent overdubs to that flawed drum track, as you know, and then to redo the drums, you might have to redo everything. So anyway, and then there will sometimes just be this one, what I call the magic overdub that makes everything work. And it's oddly enough, oftentimes it's an acoustic guitar. And because there's a lot of rhythm generally in an acoustic guitar, there's a lot of notes just rhythmically, whether you're arpeggiating through something or strumming through something, and that will soften the wobbliness or clunkiness of the drum track because you're having a little bit of, it's almost like chorusing rhythmic,
right?
You know what I mean? So, and then I'm jumping up and down by myself, and I was always jumping up and down by myself, even pre-pandemic.
Right.
I'm always alone in the studio, so I'm like, can anybody hear this shit? And like, there's nobody there. There's never anybody there. And I'm just jumping up and down like I did it. This thing is insane, and then I then I sit on it for years, and that's the story of my life.
Well, that's part of the art, though, which leads me to my next question, which is, can art and the music business live together? I mean, your story is similar to my story with record labels, fun with record labels, people getting promoted and or let out of your life who signed you. You and me were the same.
Yeah.
How is it that we can make music and be in the music business at the same time? Does that work for you?
I don't know, because I'm not really in the music business anymore. I'm actually not. My last 2 records came out on a Japanese only label,
right?
Which are fantastic people, and they
certainly are.
Shockingly gave me like more money than you would think of for put on my records. But I don't have a manager. I don't have a lawyer. I don't have a agent, and haven't for a decade.
Wow.
So I kind of like, I'm not really doing it, I'm not doing it the typical way.
Right.
Obviously I do think that they can coexist, but I think it's extremely rare. And I think that, generally speaking, the people who seem like they're like really credible artists or something, or like they really mean it, man. And all this, if you're seeing them on TV or hearing them on the radio, then they fooled you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm just saying that generally. Of course, there are exceptions to that theory, but for the most part, there is a lot of planning and a lot of looking around what's happening, a lot of keeping up with the Joneses, and a lot of trying to be ahead of the game by, sort of like aping stuff or plain old theft of other things that happens with the people that you see and hear about the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as musicians and singers, songwriters, whatever, artists, I really think the term artist, I have such a problem calling, some pop guy an artist. But yeah, so I don't know. I think, I just think it's infinitely more fun and satisfying and ultimately like, soulfully gratifying to make the music, to make whatever it is, music, art, film, literature, to do exactly what you want. And if you can do exactly what you want and actually kind of get away with that and not go into too much debt or get arrested,
yeah,
then you're doing all right.
Right. You tour with a lot of different people too, so you get to get out and get your your jollies out by playing. And do you gravitate towards you play mostly guitar when you go on tour with folks? Well,
the first touring I did as a kind of a member of a band that I didn't have anything to do with until I was on stage with them, that was Air. That was back in like 2000. And the French band Air, and in that band I was playing bass, and I was and the bass is kind of the most, well, it's not the most, but it's a very prominent character in their music.
Got it.
And Nico, the redheaded of the two, there's 2 guys. Nico plays they both play keyboards, but Nico plays some guitar and bass. And he's a great bass player. I love his bass playing. It's very kind of, it's incredibly sexy, 1971, just like kind of Klaus Bormann, but also Morricone and all that.
Right.
And very cinematic. And so I was playing bass, which that's what he did on the record, but I ended up going bananas in that band and like really turning the bass into something else. And I was playing lead bass. It was lead bass, and I was like shredding on the bass.
No way. That's wow,
and
wow.
There's footage of it. There's a lot of footage of it, but I just remember one time there was this section in the song where I would step on one of those electro-harmonics micro synths.
Mm-hmm.
They go like, it's like a filter, like an envelope. Yep. And I would step on this thing and do this crazy, distorted, shredding solo on the bass, noisy and fast. Right. And then I just remember this one time, I think we were at the Olympia in Paris, and I was so in the moment that I put the bass up here and started playing it with my teeth like Hendrix.
Gotta see this.
And check this out. While I'm doing it, like I'm mid plucking with my teeth, like maybe gonna break my tooth. I'm just like completely in this moment. I had one profound thought that this is too far. I've gone too far.
You found the line and you have crossed it.
I have burned the line with my trail. And I took the bass down from my face, and I looked at Nico, expecting to see him going like, which he never did. He was always very excited about what I did. But I thought he was going to be like, maybe just kind of like look away and start playing,
Yeah.
And he's just looking at me, and I can read his lips, and he goes, "That's so cool."
You're egging you on, man.
At that point, I was like, I can do no wrong in this band. Because if I can play the bass with my teeth in a down tempo electronic band,
oh my Lord,
I can do anything I want to do. So that was a really fun experience for me being in that band. Those guys treated me like I was a total equal. They put me in the front and center. Those guys played mainly the two stations of keyboards. They didn't care about they didn't want to be in the spotlight. They didn't want to be at the center of attention. The air music, the live show is all about the music. And all about the live show. It wasn't about the personalities. Except I couldn't help but just inject a bunch of my personality in this thing because I was so excited. Because it was so fun to do. So that was really good.
Do you have a better time playing live than being in the studio, or are they kind of just totally different worlds for you and equally fun?
Totally different, equally fun.
Okay.
No preference. Actually, they're almost unrelated for me.
Yeah, I hear you.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Live, I don't even know how I get through the day because I put so much energy into the show.
Yeah.
And like with Beck now, I'm running around like Wayne Kramer, and that's hard to do when you're not 23 years old.
Weren't you were you in Minneapolis with him the last time?
Yeah, we played it. We did a live thing at Paisley Park.
At Paisley. I saw that.
I've never seen it.
No way.
I've never seen it. I never watch any of the stuff that we do.
How come?
Because I should say I used to, and it's because it's a moment, and the moment in my mind is, first of all, my impression of what just happened is usually wrong.
Oh.
So I'm like, that was insane, or that was like terrible, and then somebody's like, that was the best show I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, well, you weren't watching. And
you're wrong.
Yeah, you're stupid, obviously. Sorry, challenge.
Right.
But no, there's certain things I like to watch, but for the most part, I don't like to watch like an entire show of me playing. No. I'm not embarrassed or anything. I'm happy with what I do, but it's for people. I'm doing it for everybody else. I'm not doing it.
Right. Well, since because we're coming up on an hour here, I want to be good to you and let you go fairly soon here. But because it's called Music on the Run,
Yes.
we're going to talk about. Let's grab your cocktail now. We're going to talk about health for a second. Yes. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
How have you survived for all these many years, man? Being out on the road. Is there anything that you do just to keep sane when you're on the road or when you're in the studio? Anything like running or
yeah,
working
I see where you're
out,
going.
anything like that?
I regret to inform you that I have literally no regimen. I have no discipline.
Okay, well that's good.
I have no workout thing. I'm lucky that I stay thin.
Yeah, right.
I do leave something on my plate. That's the thing I learned a long time ago. Leave something on your plate.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. Stay skinny by leaving something on the plate.
You may want those last 3 French fries, but they don't.
No.
They don't deserve
leave
you.
Them.
But and then I definitely walk. I like to get out of my room. Kind of sad. The last time I went to New York, which was with Annie with St. Vincent to do SNL, and it was New York is a shadow of its former self. Last month. Everything is getting better, but normally, so then I didn't really get to cruise around, and we were staying in a kind of a lame part of town to be close to NBC. But yeah, normally I get out and walk a lot, and so that's how I kind of keep it together, because it's really hard, and I drink, and
that's okay.
And I'll drink during a show.
I used to. I was a pro. I was in the Steve Miller band, and our roadies would come and fill our glasses with vodka and a little splash of cranberry. We used to call it a bloody tooth, and I'm like, bloody tooth.
That's amazing. Yeah. Wait, what era with Steve?
88 to 93.
Oh man,
with my 2 brothers. Oh yeah,
what?
It was on.
Wow.
I played guitar.
Crazy.
I played guitar. My brother played bass. My other brother played keyboards.
Wow.
Well, they should have just dropped that bus off at Hazleton, and it would have been much better off. We had so much fun. It should have been illegal.
Oh man, I bet. I love Steve Miller.
Steve Miller is such a good guy too, man. And
Is he?
Talk about knowing who someone is. He knows exactly who he is, and he doesn't take shit from anybody.
Yeah.
That
man, that's 70s. That like his greatest hits record is insane, because it's an entire record of massive hits.
Massive, cool sounding hits too.
Super
well
weird
produced.
Yeah, like what is it? Big Old Jet Airliner. Is that the name of that song?
Yeah, but that's a cover. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, there's an old blues guy who he covered that. Go back and hear the old version. You'll be like, whoa, it's totally way more dusty and cool. I'll send that to you after we get off here. But
okay, cool.
Yeah. This is so unfair, man. There's so much more to talk about. Your solo records, I know it's been covered before, but what can we expect this record that you're working on? When are we going to hear this son of a gun, man?
Well, I'm going to get it out this year. I just don't know. I just don't yet know how. I mean, if I'm going to try and find a label, or if I'm just going to self-release, or I have no idea. NFT? I have no idea.
I hear you.
But it will be this year for sure. And I mean, if I didn't feel this way, I probably wouldn't be motivated to work on music anymore. But I really, truly think it's the most it's the body of work that I'm most proud of all my records, for sure. It's got a lot more sort of range, and I'm saying a lot more range. This is the same guy that had, Miracle Medicine and Before My Heart Attacks on one record, and one sounds like a Cole Porter tune and one sounds like a Buzzcock song. So to say it's got a lot of range is I'm not don't underestimate that. It's just got a lot of different things happening, and there's moments that are really really direct without as many kind of sonic distractions or even lyrical distractions, or like little left turns. There's some stuff that's very direct, which I'm really proud of, because to me that's kind of the hardest thing to do. Every time I see like see the early country, not the early, but the golden era for me, country guys like late 60s, early 70s, George Jones and Glenn Campbell and all that.
I am the lineman for the county.
Oh man, I've covered.
You cover that, man.
Yeah. But how they're so sincere and earnest, and when the way they're just looking in the camera, and there's no bullshit. There's no I'm being weird. No, this is a human being pleading to you.
Right.
They're pleading their case.
Right.
And I absolutely adore that, even though I've just spent the last hour talking about being abstract and all this stuff. I also really love the direct, succinct statement from my heart to yours.
Yeah.
Please hear me. Yeah. And so that's another thing to throw into my mix, that it's why I'm always confused, because I have all these different things that I love, all these different gods that I serve, if you will. And so there's a bit more of that on this record, is what I'm saying. There's definitely some very direct, sincere, it's all been sincere, but you know what I mean?
Well, hurry up. We need this thing.
Well,
Come on now, the fans need it. Are you touring this year too?
I might do a little bit more with Annie, but I'm not sure. And then I will definitely figure out some way to do some shows, whether it's just me by myself.
Yeah.
Thankfully, none of my fans thus far have seemed to mind when I do solo shows.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh man, I thought he was gonna be with a band, I'm out of here. But that's also might be because I play so infrequently that they don't leave.
but it's an honest approach too, man. It's two sides of the coin.
And you can really hear the songs. And because I think when I get my bands together, my bands always like rock. I always make my bands rock really hard. Like we rock way harder than the record. Because again, I don't really look at the two things like they're even hardly related. It's like when it's live, I want it to be like, come on. And in the studio, that's not always where I'm coming from. So, but yeah, I'll be doing some touring stuff.
Good, man. Well, thank you so much for spending an hour with us. I'm sorry we didn't get to talk about more stuff, but maybe at some point in our lives we'll get to hang out and do a part 2, whether it's going to be recorded or not. We don't care. It'd be fun to hang out with you in person, man.
My
we'll
pleasure.
have to make that happen.
Yes, that was super fun. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks so much. And that's it, everybody. St. Paul here. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Music on the Run was hosted by yours truly, St. Paul Peterson. Edited and produced by my buddy Davide Raso. Artist relations by Owen Sartori. Video editing by Tanner Montague. And a very special thanks to the people who financially support this podcast. And remember, go ahead and do your own thing.